my people, they had their hands cuffed, and they were shot at in the head, straight, bullet in your face. And that's if you say no. So you don't have a choice. You either go with me, or I'm going to take you down. Even his family, even his own family, he did that from the day he started his so-called revolution in 1969. You follow me, you stay alive. You don't follow me, you'll die. And it's not that. Sometimes they don't kill you as a person. They will shoot every person that you care for. They rape people's wives, their daughters, in front of their eyes, in prison. If you know any Libyan, speak to any Libyan in the whole country here in the UK who are living, which God knows how many of you. Every single one has a story. Every single one. And they are humans like everybody else. So the family, even his own family, are struggling. But at the moment, the situation in Libya, people think that, well, Gaddafi might get back to power. There's no going back, believe it or not. There's no going back. If you think there's any small percentage of Gaddafi getting back into power, he will take the whole eastern part, any city that stood up to him, he will take them all over again. Now we have the media, we have the whole world with us. There's no going back, even his own family. And you will hear every single day a defection in the family. And believe it or not, I might say this, but but this is my own belief, that Gaddafi will go from within. And that's the only way. It's sad to say, but he can only go from within. Someone from his close circle will eventually say, oh, this isn't going to work. And he's going to take him down. And that's the sad reality of Libya. We will see, and I guarantee you that. Sadly to say, honestly, it's sad to say, but my people, everyone in Libya is willing to take that fight. That many people will go for this. Many people will die. Many people will suffer for this regime to finish. But it has to finish. There's no way. All we're asking for now from the West is to accept and to recognize the council, the transitional council at the moment that's taking place in Benghazi.
France has today, by the way. France has today.
Yeah.
France has taken the lead. The EU now, they accept it, then eventually we will be able to get the message across. We've been able to get the message across. People on the ground have got their message across. For the first time, believe it or not, Libya is known to the world. I'm so proud that Benghazi was never heard of. Tripoli was never heard of. None of the Libyan people were heard of before. But now we have the whole world listening to our cause, to humans' cause. I'm not saying even to the Libyan cause. It's the Egyptian cause, it's the Middle Eastern, and it's a revolution by all means for the Middle Eastern now.
One clarification, just for the question from Susan, right, about economics. Yeah. I think the points that were made were very, very important, and I think there's a linchpin that helps to understand what's going on. There is a connection between authoritarianism and economics. Okay, the best example I can give you is that the Egyptian courts ruled in favor of a minimum wage for Egyptian workers. Okay, so you're saying, so this goes back to the issue of institutions. We have institutions. We already have them. The problem is in the unwillingness of the regime to respect the rule of law. So the court rules in favor of a minimum wage. The government makes an appeal against this decision. It goes to the appeal court. The appeal court overturns the government, okay, and says no, the minimum wage is valid. The government takes it to the Supreme Court and loses again. So what do they do in the end? They decide simply to ignore it. Completely to ignore it, totally. Okay? Egypt imports wheat, the biggest importer of wheat in the world. Why? We're up 70% of our economy is still agricultural. Why the hell are we importing wheat? We have an indigenous wheat strain in Egypt. Indigenous, can grow in the sand. Okay? Why do we import wheat from Ukraine and Russia and the United States? Because this is a political decision. It's a political decision. It's a political decision that has an economic impact. It means that it is no longer profitable or sustainable for an Egyptian farmer to farm. Why? And so this whole idea, you're right, it's not about authoritarianism only, it is about economics, but they got them used to a whole load of terrible things. For example, for the last 2 years, every month, somebody, some group, some union is demonstrating outside the parliament asking for basic economic rights. The Prime Minister will come out after 30 days and give them a 15% pay rise, and they will all go home. Okay? So it is a short-term solution, again, paying them, essentially bribing them to go home, and kind of a divergence from addressing very real political and economic issues, because the two are linked. And so authoritarianism and all the other problems in society, why are we only investing in tourism? Why is Egypt not? Egypt's investment in research and development is 0.02% of the economy. Why is that the case? So these are all political decisions that have an economic impact, and they are kind of clouded by or framed by authoritarianism, a lack of respect for the rule of law, and right at the end, then you have the democratic process. And just in relation to this question, I don't think it's a bad question, simply because there are plenty of Arabs and there are plenty of Egyptians who say that, who say Egyptians are not ready for democracy. The last Egyptian who said Egyptians are not ready for democracy was Omar Suleiman, the vice president, who had to leave office the next day. This discourse about Egyptians not being ready for democracy goes back to what Cameron was saying. We had a functioning parliamentary democracy that was holding the king accountable in the 1930s and the 1940s. Okay, and then we had this military coup. But more importantly, it is usually middle-class people sitting at home who tell us, or who say in their salons and in their dinners in the Four Seasons and all of that kind of stuff, that the Egyptian people are not ready for democracy. And my answer to them is, if you are not ready for democracy personally, don't take part. But the Egyptian people, the Libyan people, and all the other people in the world are absolutely ready, because it is not great surgery. You're never ready to have a child. You're never ready to get married, but you do it anyway. People actually have very, if you listen to people in the villages, when they're talking about elections, they may be talking about small issues that they want implemented, but they understand it as so that they will elect somebody on a particular agenda, and if he works towards realizing that agenda, fine. If he doesn't, we don't want him. So they understand what democracy is. That is what democracy is. So this question about who's ready for democracy and who's never, I think you just leave it at the door. This is a bad framing of the question, as if you must reach some intellectual capacity or some particular GDP before we can vote, or before we can be trusted with a vote. We couldn't trust the Americans; they voted in Georgia twice.
Just very quickly in relation to this, economic things being a political decision. There has been since, I think, mid-90s, the so-called qualified industrial zones in Egypt. Qualified industrial agreements. Quiz. According to which, no item can be exported to the United States from Egypt unless 12% of its constituent elements originates from Israel. Now, what does this mean for the Egyptian sector, which is involved in the production of those elements we can think of, and the whole destruction of the Egyptian agricultural system as a result of structural adjustments of 80s and 90s has led to precisely this disaster of importing the entire wheat of the country from outside Egypt, where Egypt was perfectly self-sufficient in terms of agriculture before.
In the Roman Empire, Egypt was the breadbasket for the whole empire. Of course, that's some time ago. I'm wondering, there are a few more questions. I propose that we take this last round and then ask the speakers to wind up. He was first, and then you.
perhaps when we bring all these events into a historical perspective, I can only draw parallels to what happened 20 years ago in Eastern Europe. I mean, I think of Gaddafi and him making a video statement inside the rickshaw with an umbrella, saying there's no Venezuela, and I think of Ceausescu in Romania. So to what extent do you think, if to any extent, the movement in the Middle East have somewhat drawn inspiration from what happened in Eastern Europe?
Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, I'm so glad that I'm survived to see that's going on in Egypt in particular. And I want to ask, how can the Egyptian revolution survive the control of the army and the ruling elite and the sectarian violence? And my question, I put that question, but I want my other question is about the Libyan revolutionary. What's going on now is this kind of a terrible racist crime against Africans under the badge of their mercenaries supporting Gaddafi. And what's really hilarious was last night Gaddafi was talking about my measures to stop the immigrant African from getting to Europe. So the France and Italy is going to get black as soon as I leave. So I want to ask, is this reconcilable? That is it a racist in both sides that the black Africans are going to suffer under Gaddafi and under the coming revolutionary? I don't know. What do you think about that?
Sir,
No, go ahead, please.
sir, what would you recommend to all those countries that are also struggling? Like, for example, Venezuela is also going through problems more or less the same as in Libya and Egypt, but no one knows. What would you recommend for them to, like, which actions? Because apparently nobody knows what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, in Egypt, the revolution carries on, and like the groups of people who have been coming to the forefront, say the workers in the textile industry, if they take their demands further and try to push the revolution further, do you think there are sections of Egyptian society who supported the overthrow of Mubarak who could then turn against these new upcoming struggles?
What is the role of the internet, social media like Facebook and Twitter in the protest revolutions? And I was just wondering, do many people have internet in Egypt and Tunisia? And is it more important maybe for the elites and maybe linking with the diaspora against the authoritarian regimes? Maybe the YouTube videos, is that very important as well to make the human rights abuses known? Or finally, do you think that the internet and social media is not really that important for the revolution?
Okay. Well, one last question, yes.
Where does Israel fit into all this?
Well, we heard